From the Pacific Northwest to around the world, you are about to powerfully connect with Angela Ray.
Hello, everyone. Greetings and salutations again. Angela Ray here with the power to connect. Hey. My right-hand man is my mic stand and little cool Mo D for you. I got my mic here. I'm here, and I have an extremely special guest who's going to talk to us today. We are going to South Sudan in Africa. In case you've never heard of it, we're going to learn some things today. We're going to talk to a humanitarian, he's just an amazing humanitarian person. He's been dealing in the humanitarian development arena for quite some time. He's very good at it. And it's my pleasure to introduce Ikelokuc Okelo. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for staying up so late because I know it's 9 hours. What time is it there?
Well, thank you, Angela. I don't know if I'm more special than Kumo D.
Yes, you are.
It's only 7 o'clock. So
7 o'clock. Okay, good.
So
I'm not keeping you up 10 o'clock with an interview, huh?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
You've had such an interesting life that I really do want to just kind of talk about your journey, because what's important to me is that folks understand that we are citizens of the world, not just a citizen of the United States and a resident of wherever you live, but citizens of the world. And your life has truly embodied that. You're an American, but you ended up going to school overseas. Tell me about that.
I think it was just really a lot of our family because of circumstances and so on, and our parents' home country is not a unique story. I think we had to move. A lot of us were born overseas, so in that process, and not just myself, but my cousins and a lot of us, our family was always good enough to keep us in tune with our culture, where we're from, and so on. And I was lucky enough to spend some time in Kenya as a very young person. So that was good. In the midst of a lot of, ups and downs, mm-hmm. that was a good sort of foundation. Mm-hmm. So I would say that I think, it gave us a foundation I would say that a lot of people don't have, even though they may know intellectually where they're from. I think it was good to experience it on some level.
That's awesome. And so you did experience some of the United States educational system before going to Kenya to go to boarding school. Is that right?
No, actually, no, I can't really say I did because,
wow.
I was in Kenya from age 5. So,
okay.
I was in boarding school. Yeah. So,
what was boarding school like? Did you have to stay, or were you able to go home at night, after school?
You go home for the holidays and everything. I think it was different times, than now and so on. So you go home for holidays. It was good. I mean, it was at that age. It was what you do. It wasn't really. You didn't know anything else, so mm-hmm. you just dealt with it. I think it was. But looking back, I think it was a good experience. Given alternatives.
Yeah, and I know. I was told that like you graduated at 16 because that's the way things are. In the boarding school process. There in Kenya. And I'm like, man, I wish I could have graduated at 16. I was ready. Some people aren't ready yet for college or whatever, but I was more mature for my age. I'll put it that
way. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's how things are. I think it was family really instilled in us good foundation, education, etc. So, some things weren't as challenging as they may have been for other people. I guess academically, when when you come from the foundation like we had, a professor or teacher is not really that much of a big deal.
I know, that's right.
After you've dealt with them mother or father, so I think that was good. Yeah.
Your father is a lovely person, first of all, but your father was a diplomat for many years and very instrumental in certain historical contexts, whether we're talking about Hamid Karzai in Afghanistan or Yasser Arafat et al. Your father was a very trusted diplomat. Did you live the life of like a diplomat somewhere? You like on the move a lot or not?
I guess it was, somewhat. I think, he was who he was and he is who he is. So I don't want to speak too much, for him, but I definitely would say he was a very, very influential, very good person. Let me not say
is exactly. I'm saying was it is.
And right, and I think definitely a lot of the experiences he had, he made sure he shared them in a very open, matter-of-fact kind of way. So I think when it came time for us to go into the world, I think we understood a lot of things, more than maybe other people would, which was good.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of people and Americans, we need to get far better at knowing what's happening in the world. But in particular, I try to challenge people to learn about what is happening on the continent of Africa, because people say Africa like it's one country, and we know that it's not one country. It's 50 plus countries. And a lot of people don't know about Sudan and South Sudan and what happened in 2011, to separate Sudan and create a South Sudan. Can you tell us a little bit about just about the history there and, just the history there of how the country was birthed?
Sure. So I guess the first part of your question, I think what's happening in Africa, what's happening everywhere, what's happening in New York, what's happening in Seattle, what's happening. It's a place with people, so everything is happening.
That's right. That's right.
Things,
Word up.
Things,
that's right.
So
that's right.
Simple as that.
Word up. Simple as that.
One of those annoying questions that we get, but anyway.
You just called me annoying. I love it.
Part of you. No. Well, it's like do you have cars in Africa, etc.? You get that sort of stuff, but thankfully not as much these days anymore. But anyway, yes. South Sudan, yes. A long, it's a story of, I guess, revolution, etc. Depending on how far back you go, but let's say go back to 1983. It was one country at the time known as Sudan, as people know. The government at the time imposed Sharia law on the entire country. And there had been a history of marginalization and so on before. Prior to 1956, the country was administered by the British via the Egyptians. And so when Sudan gained its independence in 1956, excuse me, the southern region, which is now South Sudan, which was almost intentionally marginalized, predominantly African, Black African, etc., and the northern region, which is now Sudan, they were reunited after having been governed separately, and that caused a bit of problems. Then, obviously, spilled over many years. Of course, Sudan, as the country was forming itself, as countries do. I think if you put it in context, The Civil War, I'm not a great historian. The Civil War was for 18 something, 50, 60. The U.S. declared its independence 1776. So that's 7 years after the country declared its independence, it still fought a civil war. So I think these are normal, unfortunate growing pains of nation building and so on. It's not that people are barbaric and and as the picture sometimes is often painted.
Which that gets annoying.
Yes.
Can I just say that? That's why I want to talk to somebody like you, because I don't know.
Right. And everybody, everyone's gone through it, these sorts of things. But anyway, as we were saying, so that period where it was governed as Sudan, there was obviously marginalization of the South in many ways, economically, culturally, etc. But the real breaking point, you could say, was 1983 when they imposed Sharia law on the whole country, and that was too much because the South is predominantly Black African, Christian, traditional religion, etc. And please, if this interview goes online and there's some things where I'm paraphrasing and people obviously want to jump in, feel free, because I'm trying to paraphrase, and it's sometimes not fair when you're talking about people's history to sort of paraphrase it.
That's solid.
That's what we're doing for the.
I appreciate that. That's super solid. Yes. Can you just for a second explain to people what Sharia law is?
So that's the law of the Quran, basically. So that's the law that's imposed in Saudi Arabia. A lot of Islamic Arab countries have that, where basically the law of the religion is the law of the land. And so that obviously in a population where there are a lot of Christians and traditional religions and cultures, etc., that obviously didn't go down well. And so a man by the name of John Garang and others in 1983 led a rebellion under what was called the SPLM, the Sudan People's Liberation Movement. And they formed a rebellion. They rebelled against the North, fought a long civil war, and eventually in 2011 gained their independence. Along the way, unfortunately, there was a split in that. Along the way to independence in 2011, there was a split in that rebellion, which manifested itself in 2013 in the civil war in South Sudan between Vice President Riek Machar and the President Salva Kiir. And the purpose of the UN, what we're doing here now, is to try to support the peace deal that they signed in first 2015, and then they re-signed it 2018. So essentially our work involves trying to support them to obviously implement that peace agreement, and then of course do what we can do to help develop a nation, in short, develop and build a nation, but without impeding on the sovereignty of the nation. I think that's what a lot of people get mixed up. The UN can't act as the government. It can support the government, but it cannot come into a country and act as a government.
And we act like we act like that's what we can do. It's annoying. We act like that's what we can do. And I think something else that sort of bothers me is, yes, we have a terrible war going on in Ukraine, horrible war. But there's tons of stuff that's happening in Africa. We're talking about South Sudan. We're talking about the history that involved war. And I just don't think that we are allowing ourselves to be educated enough. And as a journalist, I'm going to put all that on journalists and on broadcasters who are not understanding the importance of the international issues. Now, when I go to Europe, I see a lot of broadcast and journalism about Africa, but I don't see it here. And that's something that has bothered me for a while. You're in the humanitarian business. You're in the business of what I call helping folks, what I call doing the Lord's work. How long have you been doing this? And can you just tell me about some of the highs and lows, the challenges, what makes you happy, all that?
Well, I would say we're pretty, in the UN, pretty fortunate, I would say, but, compared to, say, NGOs and people who do a lot of the same work, and it's sometimes in much more difficult conditions. But I would say overall, what you could, the world is changing, rapidly in many ways. Yes. Geopolitically, you can say, technologically, the truth has changed. You know what I mean? A lot of different things have changed. So, I think doing it over. I started in 2009. It's about 13 years or so. So I
has it been that long?
Yeah.
What? Oh my God. Okay. Time flies.
Yeah. Yes, it does. It's been everything. Like I would say, it's been great. It's been I wouldn't say disheartening, but there's a cause for cynicism. Maybe you could see lots of times. And then very hopeful in many ways, because you interact with people who are often in a very desperate situation and so on, but they're very optimistic sometimes about maybe the little that they have, etc. So yeah, it's been everything. I think it's been a very it's a great perspective on sort of on the world, I guess, because you get to see everything. You get to see, politics, the good and bad of politics. Get to see, the good and bad of, cultural differences, of religious differences, all of these things. So clearly, there's a balancing act that we have to do as people, leaders, society, community, etc., to balance that. Because too much one way or the other obviously causes problems.
Exactly.
And, no one has the answer. But I think in every context, I think that's really what you try to do if you have the opportunity. And that's really just what we're trying to do here. So
one of the things I did, because I was going to ask you how safe you felt with respect to COVID. And I did note that the State Department since 2021 that they have delivered more than 650,000 free Johnson & Johnson vaccine doses. I don't know what that means because there's more people than 650 something thousand folks who live in South Sudan. But as far as COVID is concerned and being in a third world country, are you feeling safe? Do people feel safe? Do you feel like people have been vaccinated? Do you feel like we need to do better at getting vaccines to people in third world countries, to the countries in Africa?
I can't speak for everywhere, but I would say in South Sudan, not that COVID was not a problem, but I think it was, if there was a line, COVID is kind of way back at the end of the line.
That's interesting.
As the list of problems. I mean,
wow.
You're dealing with a country rebuilding from civil war a couple of times over, lack of infrastructure, lack of very basic needs in many cases. So yeah, I mean, COVID, yes, was there, but I don't think outside of, say, a major city, I don't want to say it didn't register, but maybe because I'm not allowed to say that, but it didn't really. Yeah,
that's
I don't
that's
think
awesome.
It was really a factor, but I mean, in other countries, I mean, obviously, I didn't go to South Africa.
Right.
I have not been to Kenya since COVID started. Places that are more cosmopolitan, populated, you could say, it was more of a factor. So maybe that maybe says something in itself, I guess. But
right.
I think, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of theories, the food people eat, lifestyle, etc., that maybe cause a lot of causes more cases and more risk of cases in places with higher populations, better developed technology, etc., more processed food, things like that. I don't know. I'm just talking out loud here, but yeah, I mean, here I was stuck here at the beginning of the pandemic, at the beginning of 2020, throughout most of 2020. And yeah, this was probably actually the best place to be. I mean, people just kind of went about their business and weren't really freaking out. So, by the time I did travel back home, things had, I don't want to say normalized, but the worst of the lockdowns and so on were over. I personally didn't really deal with all of that the way other people did. I think life didn't really change for us. I mean, it was, we have curfew anyway, so.
This is what we do here. We connect powerfully, and you're saying something that is so powerful. And what you're saying is, while the rest of us are freaking out, because of COVID, and for very good reasons, it has been a horrible pandemic, and there has been millions of people who died. Folks in South Sudan, like you said, it's on the list, Angela, but it's not. It's way at the back of the list because everyday living is difficult. And that takes precedent over a pandemic that is hitting the world. That's powerfully connecting, you telling us that, because who would have thought? That was powerful what you said. That was some education that I didn't have. I don't know if any of our viewers have.
Yeah, I guess thank you for that. I mean,
it's been rough.
And so on.
It's been rough, but we live we don't live in a third world country where things are even more, we don't, it's thinking about things beyond yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. And when I think about things beyond myself and what I'm going through and my friends, my family, and I think about what's happening, which I think about Africa a lot, the whole continent, because my DNA, 69% is from Africa. So that's my people's. And I just want there to be more conversation, more discussion, more understanding about the continent of Africa and about the different countries and what's happening. And that is why I ended up going to Uganda. That was the first place I visited in Africa. And I went there when I was a journalist because I was tired of people portraying countries on the continent a certain way. And it changed my life. And I was able to bring back, because I worked for CBS in Miami at the time, I brought back everything I had learned, just really educated the viewer. And it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I had the honor to go with AfriCare, which is a non-governmental organization doing good works on the continent of Africa. And it's an African-American focused organization. So Uganda has a very special place in my heart. And I know that it's one of the countries that borders South Sudan as well. And I know the northern portion of Uganda has had, a lot of issues as well. Just conversations I'm wanting to have so that people might go to a map and say, let me look that up. Where is that? So the northern Uganda, the situation in northern Uganda, did that sort of bleed into, it's the wrong word, did that sort of meld into South Sudan issues as well?
So I guess during the time of struggle, all of those conflicts in many ways, I want to say interlinked, but the people are, it's like, so from the way that the British drew the borders, you'll find in many countries in Africa, communities are split. So the same community lives on, say, for example, lives in Canada, well, that lives in the U.S. I mean, not that there's much difference between Canadians and U.S. in terms of culturally, but, in a lot of countries there is, just from community to community, the language is different, culture is different, and so on. But in some cases, communities were split. And so you'll find some living in, say, South Sudan, some living in Uganda. So yes, I mean, naturally there was overlap, you can say, in the two conflicts, but they were still different issues. Like I said, I think one thing that I've learned, probably being here, and I would say there's a lot of important things that I've learned, but I would say you spoke about the media earlier, and when I watch the news now, I realize how I don't mean it in a very derogatory way, because I realize it's a hard job, but like I realize how bad of a job the media does in terms of explaining things. And that's not always the media's fault. I think sometimes that's our fault, because we don't want to spend the time to think and read history. We're like, sometimes when people start explaining, we're like, I want to hear all that. And then that naturally forces politicians. So if you don't want to hear all that, then of course you're going to get a politician who speaks in sound bites. If you're not going to take the time to listen and understand, you also have to take responsibility for what you get. If you're not really willing to take the time to understand history and so on. I mean, for example, Ukraine right now, I know a bit about it and I try to understand a bit about it, but there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of things that, sometimes it's not so much what we're being told, it's what we're not being told.
That's right. That's right.
And I think that's what I realized here. So there's, when there's been incidents in South Sudan, I'll pick up a newspaper and so on, and I'll see the journalist trying to explain. And I'm not saying they do a terrible job, but they have their maybe word limit and so on, and they have to explain this issue in X amount of time. Of course, a lot of things are going to be left out, but unless you're here, maybe on the ground, you don't know that. Unless you have an intimate understanding of the issues, you don't know really how much is being left out. And I can only imagine how many articles, books, whatever I've read over the years, and I thought I knew about something when I really didn't, because I wasn't there and I didn't speak to the people. And you almost want to go back and apologize to people maybe you argued with and so on, because you thought you knew it all and you really didn't.
That's growth. That's growth.
So I would say that's something that, that's really come into focus here, is like, really have to take the time to understand the issue, understand the people. And, it's not always easy. It's not fun. It's not, sometimes, but you just have to do that. And I think it reflects in, the kind of politicians we get, the kind of leaders we get, etc. If you don't take the time as an individual to understand things,
then how can you connect? You can't connect, and you can't powerfully connect.
Right, and you can't hold people accountable.
That's right.
Important,
That's right.
So, so I think those are the things that that it really teaches doing this kind of work. So I mean, among many things, I think, but that's one thing I could say that I've learned about.
That's awesome, because again, if you didn't hear it, let me just repeat it. We're talking about growth, and I love the fact that you're saying, sometimes I wish I could go back and apologize to somebody I had an argument with about something, because I educated myself and realized, maybe I didn't know all of the information. And I'm just going to challenge everyone who's listening to us and watching us to challenge yourself to grow and to learn. So we've got wars happening all over the world. Let's try and understand. Let's do some reading. Let's do some research. Let's not just idly sit by and passively watch. And also, I have to say to my journalist friends, I'm just going to need. There's just been too many complaints that I have heard, whether it was during the pandemic or it doesn't matter. It's that the media needs to do a better job of accurately covering what is happening. And one of the reasons I'm no longer in traditional media is because I didn't feel like I don't want to be biased. I want to give you everything so that you can make up your mind for what's best for you and your family. And I think that's really important. I'm going to switch gears here because I just said the word family. You are a very fortunate man. You are surrounded by 3 lovely daughters. And as you look at the world now and everything that's happening in it, what is your greatest hope for your daughters with respect to the way things are today and the way perhaps they need to change?
I would say, there's many things, of course, but I think all the answers are there nowadays. Like, so, say for example, I had toast for breakfast in the morning. Right now, I'm sure there was an easier way to toast bread. I'm sure there was another way to toast bread in the past, but it couldn't have been as quick and easy as it is today, right? And that applies to many things. Stupid example, but whatever. Say social media is another example. I just in the morning, I saw YouTube. There's a Nigerian artist called Burna Boy who sold out Madison Square Garden, and I think he sold out Wembley in London and stuff.
Whoa!
Now, I don't believe that would have happened without the internet, because now people share music and people can maybe appreciate music on its merit. They can like what they like. They can like what sounds good as opposed to maybe what's force fed to them. And as a result, now you have an African artist singing in his own language.
That's awesome.
White people singing the words. They do not know what he's saying.
That's awesome.
He's speaking Nigerian pidgin English. I do not know what he's saying.
Right.
Ugandans do not know what he's saying. People from other countries in Africa do not know what he's saying. Only maybe Nigerians get it. And, but we're repeating it. That's, that's huge.
That's
he didn't
huge.
have to change who he was. Right? I don't believe that would have happened without the internet. But
That's
then
right. What
also happens as a result of the internet is, stupidity can spread very quickly. So I believe, maybe to an extent that, society, and not to sound too sort of high-minded, so on, because everybody has flaws and so on, but people have, all the answers are there, but people have to be given the value system to deal with some of these answers, to deal with the technology that's available to them, to deal with the, immense wealth that they can acquire, et cetera, et cetera. Without that basic value system, and that value system never changes from the beginning of time to end, treat people with respect, et cetera, et cetera. So unless you have that, then it's very hard to sort of leverage all these good things that we have to something positive, So that's just my take. I don't know. I guess there's many ways to look at it, but I think that's just, I guess if you look at it, the kind of world you want to leave, and so on and so forth. Where people are sensible, and able to, because like I said, that the answers to a lot of the problems now that they're there now, because of technology, because of people are able to interact with each other from one side of the globe to the other in a matter of seconds. You can trade ideas, you can trade a lot of things. So, as long as that is done, in the right way, say collectively, then I think we're headed in the right way.
It's good to hear someone speak positively about social media, because there's so much that is a problem on social media today, for whether it's children or just, it can be very hot, but it serves a very important purpose. In particular, as you're talking about, when we look globally, and, this Nigerian singer might not have been able to go any further than maybe some countries in Africa, but because, as you're saying, of social media and the internet and the fact that we have access to so much, this actually, like you're saying, if we play it right, it can really change our lives in a good, positive way. But you just got to decide which lane you want to be in on social media. I know my guy does a lot of social media stuff as far as, Reddit or some other things. I'm not quite as I'm so private. I have 2 people who follow me on Twitter, but no, I'm kidding. No, really. But social media is something I'm going to have to really coalesce around, because, I'm a very private person, and I know you are too. And, there are people who document every aspect of their life. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? So anyway, I'm going to have to get on the good foot with that. So let me ask you something. I got this video of you, and I think it's you and this other tall, handsome guy. And let me see, what's my man's name? Maurice Kyria? Is that the way I say his last name? Maurice Kyria? The name of the video, I think, was Bimula. And it is so awesome. First of all, the rapping is great. But I was like, who are these 2 tall, handsome men? How'd you get to do that video? You in the hip hop game too? Because your friend is.
No.
No, I like that. No.
No. No, it was just like a fun thing. I mean, he's an artist in Uganda. Maurice, I can't say I know him very well.
Yeah.
I just really met him through someone who knew someone. And they were filming a video at a house, and he was like, "Yeah, this is what we're doing. Do you want to put bags over your head?" Like, honestly, if my face was going to be involved, I'd have said no. Like, so, yeah,
that's a nice looking face. Why not?
Kind of yeah, I mean, this is not my thing,
I know.
But yeah, it was it was cool. It was just something that happened. It literally took 10 minutes of.
That's a way. That is awesome.
If that,
it organically happened.
That's
awesome.
But but definitely, people should support people like Maurice. Artists like him. There are a lot of. A lot of people like him in Uganda, throughout Africa, very talented. Like we said, because of internet now, hopefully they can, put themselves out there. Like I said, it's good. A lot of them don't have to now change. They're not the ones who are crossing over per se are not changing themselves. At least from my observation, they're a lot of them singing in their language.
Well, I'm always excited about all the African television that I see that is now coming to the United States. Netflix and some other streamers are bringing in other cultures, and besides Great Britain, which is awesome. Some of it's reality shows, some of it's not, but just always happy to see Black folks, Black excellence, and Black folks doing their thing. And as someone who's, in the entertainment business, it's really good to see that and to know that Americans are getting exposed to that, because if we're not going to do the traveling to a place to learn about different cultures, then this has got to be a substitute until we can get out there and do what we need to do. It has been a pleasure talking to you. I was really looking forward to this, because you're a very serious man, but a very funny man at the same time. And That's exactly what we need in life. We got to laugh to keep them crying sometimes, but then, we need to be serious and and know what's happening in the world. And I really appreciate talking to someone who is a true citizen of the world and has done the work on making sure, because you are around so many different cultures, so many different religions, you have to be very careful and you have to know your community, and you do. And so the customer service component of what's important to me, community outreach, community engagement, all that language, you're doing all of that. That is what you do. And I just appreciate you. I appreciate the UN and the work that you are doing there for the UN, which means you're doing it for the world. Appreciate you, and glad that we had a chance to talk.
Don't forget to subscribe to The Power to Connect with Angela Ray and follow her on Facebook. You can also stay connected on Twitter and Instagram at angelaray.com.